from the studios of Farm Journal Broadcast, this is AgDay.
Coming up on AgDay, a butcher shop has gone to the dogs with something called barf food. We take you to China for an inside look in the fight against African swine fever as another round of severe weather hammers the plains.
Hey, we just had 2 tornadoes.
AgDay, presented by the all-new Chevy Silverado, the strongest, most advanced Silverado ever.
Good morning, I'm Clinton Griffiths. We begin with a developing story. Speculation continues on what form and amount a second round of China tariff aid could take. A Bloomberg reporter tweeting this on Tuesday, tweeting a source told him the Trump administration is considering payments of $2 per bushel for soybeans, 63 cents a bushel for wheat, and 4 cents per bushel for corn. That tweet and the weather continuing to weigh on the minds of producers as dangerous weather continues to push through the plains right now. More than 20 tornadoes were reported in Missouri, Kansas, Oklahoma, and Texas, and now there's flooding in Missouri, Kansas, and especially parts of Oklahoma following heavy rains. And the rain and the storms are not done yet as we have potential for another round of severe weather. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman joins us with an update. Mike.
Clinton, we are just stuck in this weather pattern at the moment. And what that means is a big ridge over the southeast. Now that, if this holds for a while, this is going to create a huge drought in the southeast. I know that's hard to believe if you live in the plain states, but these storm systems just keep rotating around the trough in the west, bringing in not only Pacific moisture, but energy from the southwest, and it's picking up Gulf moisture as well on the eastern edge of it, and that just creates not only a lot of rain, but severe weather through the central plains. Now, exactly where that severe weather is over the next 3 afternoons, you're going to have to watch your local TV stations for that, but suffice it to say, there's going to be some across the plains each of those days, and as we head into next week, there's actually signs that the ridge tries to break down briefly. But what usually happens in this spot is it kind of builds back up. So that's something we'll be watching. Precipitation over the next 10 days. This is from the European model. This is showing widespread areas of 2 to 4 inches of rain. You can see that right through the next 10 days, basically across most of the plains, and it kind of comes up and over the ridge, and it's a little bit lighter as it moves across the Great Lakes into the northeast, but it's still wet in those areas, just not as wet. Wind speed forecast shows the exiting storm system as we head through the rest of the day today. You can see into tonight, then we get these winds picking up in the southwest and the southern plains by tomorrow morning, and that's the next piece of energy coming out, which will again produce some heavy thunderstorms and perhaps severe weather. We'll have more details coming up.
The I-80 Planting Tour, brought to you by the Enlist Weed Control System. More weed control, less drift and volatility, maximum yield potential.
It's been a historically slow planting year for farmers in the Corn Belt, and over the last 8 weeks, AgDay's Betsy Gibbon has followed planting progress, or lack thereof, for our I-80 Planting Tour. Now, her last stop is in Illinois, where one seasoned farmer says this year is unlike just about any he's seen in his more than 60 years of planting.
It's the way it is, so just take it.
Words of wisdom from a veteran farmer who has been through his share of springs.
They always say, you know, you farm till you drop dead.
And if longevity lasts as long as Alan W. Hoffman's farming passion, there will be plenty more to go.
My aunt went to 106.
The 82-year-old Gardner, Illinois farmer first started farming full-time in the fall of 1958. Simpler times, when horsepower or mule power really meant it.
Mules, they were, you know, we had them, and I can remember had a Jack and a Jenny.
Ask him to shuffle through the memories, and Alan says there were other dreary wet springs similar to this, like in 2009. USDA saying Illinois farmers are behind planting this year. 24% of corn in the ground compared to the 5-year average of 89%. Only 9% of soybeans are planted, lagging when looking at the 5-year average of 51%. Alan, only a small slice of the report, has just over 130 acres planted. No plans to switch acreage, but perhaps plant shorter maturity varieties.
50-50, about the same as we always do, because we already had fertilized for that.
Experience Alan has earned through good and bad times alike.
I don't know, I probably could have gone on to something else, after, in college, but I don't know, it gets in your blood.
As he and others plow through 2019 and hopes future years won't be as difficult as the start of this one. Reporting in Gardner, Illinois, I'm Betsy Gibbon.
All right, thanks, Betsy. In Kentucky, there have been some bumps in the road when it comes to planting as well. But between last week and this week, some farmers say they have been able to make major headway and may, in fact, catch up. We spoke with one producer in the central part of the state. He says they're about 2/3 planted now, which is good because small grain harvest is right around the corner. And he says his barley crop is looking good.
Kind of a tough fall and winter, a lot of wet weather. Obviously, a lot of people were in that boat, but in spite of that, I'm hopeful that we've got a good barley and wheat crop.
Redding says due to wet conditions, not all the wheat got planted, but he says it's looking good now. Corn is about 3/4 complete, according to USDA. In livestock, African swine fever continues to spread across Asia. The World Organization for Animal Health getting new outbreak numbers from Vietnam this week. More than 2,000 new cases of ASF now confirmed in Vietnam, according to OIE. It's the first update they've seen from the region since late March. The report coming in clusters by village, with more than 1.3 million pigs now culled in Vietnam. China also confirming a new outbreak in the world's largest pig herd.
Here today, the Chinese are emptying their freezers, more to say. They, of course, saw aggressive slaughter rates heading up into the Lunar New Year. Thereafter, slaughter has started to decline, but we now see the Chinese maybe becoming more aggressive in the market in terms of buying U.S. or world pork after we get beyond the first part of the summer.
Bossi says without a trade deal with China settled by June around that G20 meeting in Japan, it's unlikely to happen until after the election, and that means the U.S. will likely not be a major supplier of pork to China during this outbreak. Now, since August, China has reported more than 120 outbreaks of African swine fever across every region of the country. Outside China, estimates put losses between 30 and 50%. Now, for farmers there, the devastating disease is making the idea of rebuilding the herd seem hopeless. This morning, AgDay brings you a unique look at the problem from inside China. In China's rural reaches, the epidemic of African swine fever is hitting small-scale farmers extremely hard.
你进了猪，花都死了。我这内文南头也可以经过300场格上，我进了400多格。
Most of his pens are now empty, except for a few sick hogs with the telltale signs: bloodshot eyes, loss of appetite, and diarrhea. In all, he's lost 800 head.
都不养，你看那样的大猪圈里面都没有，一个猪都没有。原来有多少？原有600-700、700个。
Chinese authorities carted away the bodies, but he says they did not inform him or any of his neighbors what's causing the deaths. He has tried to fight the disease, covering the property in disinfectant powder, used medicines, and even fire to try sterilizing the infected pens.
咱弄一个死一个，买一个死一个，谁也受不了，是吧？咱家都有啥？
Authorities in China are trying to stop or slow the disease by banning the movement of pigs from any province where a case is reported. That has caused retail prices to spike in big cities that are cut off from supplies. Meanwhile, prices paid to farmers have collapsed. China produces and consumes 2/3 of the world's pork, but its own output is plunging. As farmers here and across Asia fear African swine fever is coming for their herds, USDA expects Chinese pork imports to soar more than 40% this year.
有一句话叫谈温色变嘛，所以人人都这样，养殖业、养猪的全这样。
For producers like this, the loss makes planning a future difficult to stomach.
哎呀，这个养殖业对于那来说是一种，也是一种煎熬。说是创业吧，也不是说，哎呀， 理解不了这种。现在就是这种行业，现在虽然我们入这行了啊，我的孩子也好，不建议入这个行。
As she hopes her own business survives another outbreak. Lawmakers on Capitol Hill learn more about agriculture and climate change. The U.S. Senate Committee on Agriculture, Nutrition, and Forestry holding a hearing on Tuesday in an effort to hear things from a producer's perspective. Now, one of those testifying, Dr. Frank Mitlerner. He's a globally recognized expert on climate change and the livestock industry's role.
I also spend a good deal of time dispelling the notion that globally, livestock is responsible for more greenhouse gases leading to climate change than the entire transportation sector. This myth is one of the chief reasons we are advised to eat less meat to protect us from global warming. According to the US EPA, those sectors of our society consuming fossil fuels, such as transportation, electricity, and industry, contribute to 80% of all greenhouse gases. In contrast, all of animal agriculture combined contributes to 3.9%. Yet livestock, and therefore our consumption of animal protein, often bears the brunt of the blame for climate change.
So why the misconception? Mitlerner says it was a claim made in a 2006 Food and Agriculture Organization study. He says that claim turned out to be an error in the study, and he says the FAO admitted to it, but it has continued to spread. Mitlerner says, in fact, emissions from livestock have declined while production has increased significantly. Soybean futures started sliding on Tuesday. Some believe it came after that single tweet about possible tariff aid from a Bloomberg reporter. We'll have a look at how things finished on the CME coming up. And later, retail giant Walmart offering to do the grocery shopping for you, how it's impacting their bottom line. From the editors of The Packer. Possible tariff aid payments and the weather, both impacting trading decisions right now. Here's more from the CME.
Things are pretty busy down here at the CME Group floors in Chicago, and they're very volatile. One of the things that's been very volatile as of late is the corn market. We've seen a nice little rally, 50 cents from bottom to top, and it still looks as though that there could be some more fire in that rally left. I mean, look, this is now a weather market. We've got a problem with wet. It's a record problem with wet. So we're very, very slow. We're behind the pace, and that is going to keep a bid with these planting intentions we're getting. Yes, we only missed our expectations by one yesterday, but that was enough because we're still so far behind the 5-year average. That's a problem, right? So we're way behind the 5-year average, and especially with, say, Illinois and Indiana, that's going to be another big issue. Also, we've got acres that we might not just get in at all. We might call them prevent planting acres, right? So if we can't get those in, that's just going to be taken off the table as well. You take those off the table, we're hearing rumors it could be as many as 5 million acres, right? So that could be roughly 7% of the corn crop we're just not going to put in. 50% done with 46 million acres to go. We're not there yet, and if you look at the 10-day here in Chicago for the holiday weekend we're about to have, it doesn't look that great as far as weather. That's it for me. I'm Scott Shelley here at the CME Group floors.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
Welcome back to AgDay. Meteorologist Mike Hoffman here looking at the weather map. And Mike, more rain. There's even snow on this map. This system just keeps building.
Yeah, and it's not ending at this point. Now, obviously, we get days where we don't get any rain in places, but all in all, it's just a very wet pattern for the middle of the country. So you can see one storm system over the upper plains. This was the main one over the past couple of days. It's been coming out of the southwest. This will begin to kind of come up over that ridge that we talked about earlier in the show. And it will still cause some rain across the northern plains and the Great Lakes, but not a lot along this weakening cool front. Secondary front becomes the main one then, but still not a lot of moisture, as you can see, through the rest of the day today. Now, as we head into tonight then, we'll begin to see thunderstorms develop along this cold front through the central plains, perhaps into the southwestern Great Lakes as we head into Thursday morning. And yes, once again, rain and mountain snows developing in the Four Corner region, mainly north of the Four Corner region across most of Utah, Colorado, and even into parts of Wyoming. Heading through the day tomorrow then, again, this system exiting, it's still going to have some moisture with it in the northeast from the mid-Atlantic northward, but it's going to be this front and then eventually this whole system coming back out that's going to cause more problems for the western plains as we head into Thursday night and Friday as well. Precipitation estimates over the past 24 hours. We've already seen some pretty heavy amounts, many areas across the north central plains into the middle Mississippi Valley. Adding in the next 36 hours, we don't add a huge widespread area, but you can see some areas end up with 2 to 3 inches of rain over a 2.5 day period there, parts of the middle Mississippi Valley. So still a very wet pattern, and yes, still a snowy pattern in places. We're going to see some pretty heavy amounts in some of the higher elevations of the central Rockies. Here are the temperatures. You can see it's pretty warm. Chicago southward, chilly air, northern plains, most of the west. Heading into tonight, still pretty muggy from St. Louis southward, lots of 70s there, but we're talking 30s and 40s there across the northern Rockies into the northwestern plains, and just more of the same as the ridge holds in the southeast and storm systems just continue to rotate around that upper level trough in the west. As we head through the weekend, you can see we break it down a little bit, that ridge, and then we try to break it down with this trough by the middle of next week. We'll see if that holds or not. That's a look across the country. Now let's take a look at some local forecasts. Taking a look at Austin, Nevada, first of all. Cloudy and cold, maybe a shower or two. High of only 43. For Topeka, Kansas, warmer with times of sun and clouds. High of 76. And Greenville, South Carolina, partly sunny, warm, and rather humid. High up to 85.
The cross-border tomato wars continue. We'll have the latest next from our friends over at the Packer. And later, these meat eaters aren't too picky, even if their owners are. The perfect canine cuts in the country. The battle over Mexican tomatoes goes on. The Packer reports Mexican tomato growers have rejected the latest proposal from the Department of Commerce. The proposal would have stripped U.S. supermarkets and other buyers of Mexican tomatoes of their legal rights to reject tomatoes with condition defects and be reimbursed for their costs. Now, the Mexican tomato growers say they remain committed to a new agreement, but the group says it must be fully reflective of U.S. law. The group says it would prefer to continue with the suspension agreement, which it says has brought stability to the U.S. tomato market for 22 years. Mexican growers have filed for an injunction from a U.S. court to stop a Commerce Department anti-dumping investigation concerning Mexican tomatoes here in the U.S. Walmart recently reported first quarter earnings, and it's reporting some strong growth when it comes to e-commerce. Walmart brought in $123.9 billion. That's about $1.2 billion more than the same period last year. And the Packers' Ashley Nickel reporting the company says the growth of online grocery is a factor in the company's growing e-commerce sales.
37% growth since the first quarter last year for them.
Right.
And Ahold Delhaize also mentioned they actually broke out in their report what the number was for them of online sales out of their total U.S. sales.
That's very interesting.
So I thought that was fascinating, and Amelia made a great point. She said it'd be interesting to see, the difference between that for their U.S. business and their businesses in Europe.
Walmart says it is on track to offer same-day grocery delivery from 1,600 stores. It will also offer grocery pickup from 3,100 stores by year end. Up next, a German butcher shop goes to the dogs. No, literally, a butcher shop for dogs. See what they're cutting up next.
Closed captioning is brought to you by BASF. Grow smart with BASF. We create chemistry.
In the Country is powered by Kawasaki. Let the good times roll.
One butcher in Germany serves a unique clientele. He caters to nothing but dogs and some cats. Heinz Barron's Butcher Shop in Cologne sells chicken necks, cattle testicles, or lamb scalp. And while that may sound rather disgusting to us, it sends tails wagging there at the shop. Now, the food is known as barf food, bones and raw food, also known as biologically appropriate raw food. Some dog owners believe that feeding their pets a so-called barf diet, supplemented with grains and vegetables, is healthier. Others say it's better for the environment. But whatever the reason, the dogs visiting Barron's Butchers love all of it, especially those free samples. And that's all the time we have this morning. We're sure glad you tuned in. It's been part of your day with us. From all of us here at AgDay, I'm Clinton Griffiths. Have a great one.